On June 6, 1944, the Allied forces faced an arduous mission with the goal of opening a third front in Europe, and thus interrupting the cycle of death and destruction on a continent that had been bleeding for nearly 5 years due to a brutal and unprecedented war. At dawn on that summer day, a conglomerate of soldiers from various Allied nations landed along the coast of Normandy in occupied France. Although the exact time and location of the landing had been kept secret, the Allied forces immediately encountered fierce resistance from the German defenders as soon as the ramps of the landing craft were lowered. A crucial element that made the landing in Normandy an extremely difficult task, especially for the Americans, was the presence of Heinrich Severloh. Positioned in one of the 15 main defensive strongholds of the German fortifications along the beach, Severloh, armed with an MG-42 machine gun, known for its rapid-fire capability, held his position on Omaha Beach, relentlessly firing at the enemy soldiers who attempted to advance. Severloh's accuracy that day was devastating, and what was supposed to be a clean operation, in which the Allies hoped to avoid as many casualties as possible, turned into a bloodbath that stained Omaha Beach red. Today, we are going to deeply explore the absurd story of the soldier responsible for causing around 2,000 American casualties during the Normandy landing. Get ready. Lieutenant Bernard Furking's voice was urgently heard. "They are coming." The voice awakened soldier Severloh in a small French farmhouse, a few kilometers inland from the coast. For weeks, everyone in the 353rd Infantry Division had been anticipating this moment and knew exactly how to respond. Field Marshal Rommel always emphasized that the invasion had to be repelled within 24 hours to prevent the war from being lost at this critical point. However, Rommel was on the other side of Normandy celebrating his wife's birthday, and the Führer was enjoying a quiet night's sleep. Heinrich Heine, known for his quiet, practical, and reliable demeanor, was determined to fulfill his duty despite the uncertainties of the day. Conscripted in 1942, Heine had suffered from frostbite on the Eastern Front and had a severe tonsillitis that led to a transfer to a hospital in Warsaw. After recovering, he underwent further training and rejoined his unit, now the 352nd Division, in December 1943. Despite his setbacks, Heine's officers respected his initiative and ability to get the job done. Heine was assigned to the 1st Artillery Battery as an orderly for Lieutenant Bernhard Furking, a 32-year-old former teacher. Heine quickly formed a strong bond with Furking, an officer he found trustworthy and reliable. Their mutual loyalty created a bond that helped them face the challenges of their military duties. The two were quartered together in a French mansion owned by the Legrand family in Hayterville. During his time there, Heine began learning French, largely thanks to Furking, who was fluent in the language. Despite representing Nazi Germany, both men made efforts not to alienate the local population. Their respectful behavior helped maintain a peaceful coexistence with the French residents. After the war, Heine continued to keep in touch with the Legrand family, reflecting the genuine connections he had formed during his time in Hayterville. Waffen 62 was the most formidable of the 15 strongpoints overlooking the area that would become known as Omaha Beach. These defenses extended from WN 60, near the cliffs on the eastern end above the cab draw, to WN 74, located 7 kilometers to the west, just beyond the small coastal village of Vierville. Each strongpoint was strategically positioned to provide a comprehensive defensive network against the anticipated Allied invasion, covering approximately 325 meters. WN 62 was situated on the northern slope of the cliffs, offering an excellent observation point to fire upon the beach. This strongpoint was heavily fortified with a variety of armaments, including 2 75mm cannons, 2 50mm anti-tank guns, 2 50mm mortars, and several machine guns. Among these were a MG-34 mounted for anti-aircraft use and 2 Polish water-cooled machine guns, all designed to maximize defensive capabilities against the approaching forces. Furthermore, WN-62 was strategically located next to the Kula Su Draw, chosen by the Allies as a primary exit route from the beach, making it a focal point for the assault platoon, aiming to penetrate inland. Severloh's MG-42, with its ability to fire 1,200 rounds per minute, was positioned 7 meters from the entrance to the observation post, occupied by Lieutenant Bernhard Firking. Hein's dual role was to repel the invaders and protect his officer, who was crucial in coordinating fire on targets identified through a telescope in his bunker. Firking's crucial information, using his binoculars, was transmitted to the communications bunker, equipped with a transceiver, several meters uphill. This data was then transmitted to the artillery battery stationed further inland, in Houterville, less than 3 kilometers south of Kula Su, and near the farmhouse where they were quartered. The battery was prepared to unleash a barrage of 105mm shells onto the beach as soon as the invaders appeared. The coordinates for the bombardment had been pre-arranged with practice shots using dummy shells to avoid damaging the carefully placed obstacles on the beach, designed to destroy any landing craft that reached the shore. Rommel had meticulously planned to cover all angles. It was up to Firking, Severloh, and the 12 other men of the 352nd Division to defend their stretch of the coast from the Allies. They were supported by 27 soldiers from the 726th Grenadier Regiment and occupied one of the most strategically positioned strongpoints on the French side of the English Channel. Although outnumbered, their arsenal was formidable, and Heinrich was determined not to disappoint his lieutenant. Severloh's MG-42 was positioned right here, just 7 meters from the observation bunker visible on the left. Its field of fire extended directly to the beach and to the left, covering the eastern end of Easy Red. The two soldiers arrived at WN-62 at 12:55 p.m. on June 6th. Firking immediately headed to his observation post, while a sergeant brought an ammunition box for Severloh, who then loaded his MG-42. The soldiers of the 726th Grenadier Regiment were also in position, waiting for dawn. The adverse weather conditions made visibility difficult, but as the sky gradually cleared, they saw the horizon filled with ships of various sizes. Shortly after 6 a.m., bombers from the 8th United States Air Force appeared above, causing Hein and his comrades to take cover. They were lucky. The poor visibility caused the bombers to miss as a precaution, resulting in their bombs harmlessly falling inland, far from the gun positions. However, the relief was brief, as Allied warships began an unrelenting barrage of rockets and large shells. The impressive size of the armada and the intensity of the bombardment made it clear to Hein that he would be fighting for his life that day, which meant he would have to eliminate as many enemies as possible to survive. Around 6:30 a.m., the first landing craft came into range, their ramps lowering to release waves of soldiers from the 1st United States Infantry Division, famously known as the Big Red One. These were not the British Tommies the defenders had expected, but rather American GIs running toward the shore under the false belief that the preceding air bombardment had neutralized most of the German defenses. The invasion plans had meticulously categorized the D-Day beaches to ensure an organized landing and rapid progression inland. The sector directly in front and to the left of WN-62 was codenamed Easy Red, a crucial entry point for the Allied forces. Outside of Severloh's primary line of fire, to the right, was the Fox Green sector. As the American soldiers landed, they faced a brutal reality. The defenses were far from eliminated. Hein followed his orders, waiting until the soldiers were knee-deep in water before opening fire. This tactic instantly created chaos, forcing the survivors and wounded to hide behind the beach obstacles designed to block and damage the landing craft. Many were left with no choice but to shelter behind the bodies of fallen comrades who were washing up on the shore. Despite the initial shock of encountering unexpected resistance, the soldiers of the 1st Infantry Division advanced with determination. They fought through the surf and heavily mined beaches where barbed wire and obstacles slowed their progress. Severloh, from his well-fortified position, unleashed a relentless barrage of machine gun fire, cutting down the exposed troops as they tried to find cover and regroup. The chaos on the beach was overwhelming. Many landing craft were destroyed before the troops could even disembark, and those who reached the shore found themselves in a deadly crossfire. Severloh's MG-42, capable of firing 1,200 rounds per minute, turned the beach into a killing field. The Americans, realizing the extent of the defenses, called for naval gunfire support, which brought temporary relief but also increased the destruction and confusion on the ground. Near the shoreline, an MG-34 faced operational problems, making Heinz' MG-42 the main source of devastation. Years later, Hein reconnected with Franz Gluckel, a fellow gunner from the 726th Regiment. Franz, who was only 18 years old at the time, operated an old Polish water-cooled machine gun. However, a hand injury prevented him from continuing after only a few hours of combat. The first American troops landed at low tide, initially at a distance of about 450 meters. As the tide rose, subsequent waves of soldiers arrived progressively closer, becoming easier targets. Each landing craft lowered its ramp, releasing about 30 soldiers at a time. Heinz' MG-42, with its rapid rate of fire, could decimate an entire platoon with a precise 3-second burst. The MG-42's high firing rate meant that if one bullet hit its target, it was usually followed by several others. After the war, Hein met an American soldier who had been hit 3 times while landing on the beach, likely making him one of Hein's victims. As each wave of soldiers arrived, Hein continued his relentless fire, taking full advantage of the rising tide to inflict the maximum number of casualties. This deadly efficiency significantly contributed to the chaos and carnage experienced by the American troops as they struggled to gain a foothold on Omaha Beach. The intervals between incoming waves of troops allowed the machine gun barrel to cool slightly, but still required frequent replacement. During these pauses, Hein used his Mauser K98 rifle, which he estimated he fired about 400 times that day. The targets were abundant, as the strong west-to-east current pushed many of the small landing craft off course, causing them to beach within range of Hein's gun. Lieutenant Firking and the rest of the team were heavily occupied identifying targets, establishing coordinates, and transmitting messages through the zigzag trenches to the artillery battery in Haterville. Their coordinated efforts ensured that the heavy guns could inflict maximum damage on the landing forces. Hein was deeply focused on his task, but as the morning progressed, he noticed that his was the only machine gun firing on that stretch of the beach. Years later, while researching in the German military archives, he found a message sent at 12:10 p.m. that morning, confirming that only one machine gun was operational at WN-62, which was his. This realization brought forth the extent of his personal responsibility for the casualties inflicted on Easy Red that day. Severloh vividly remembered the events of June 6th. He reported seeing several waves of 10 to 15 landing craft heading toward his stretch of Omaha Beach, estimating that 6 of these waves approached before noon. Along Omaha Beach, each wave comprised about 50 landing craft, a mix of wooden LCVPS with armored ramps and more heavily protected LCAS. As the ramps lowered, releasing about 50 bursts of machine gun fire, many soldiers, in a desperate attempt to avoid the barrage, jumped off the sides of the boats, often plunging into waters too deep for their heavy equipment. Machine guns are most effective when aimed at densely packed groups, especially in confined areas. After Severloh's machine gun fire wreaked havoc on the troops disembarking from the landing craft, he would switch to his rifle to pick off the survivors. One particular incident that haunted Severloh for years occurred during this phase. Today, 2 concrete blocks remain on the beach, remnants of a mill that crushed beach pebbles for the construction of bunkers. During the battle, an American soldier carrying a flamethrower sought shelter behind one of these blocks. Severloh, now using his rifle, shot the soldier through the helmet, killing him instantly. His lifeless body collapsed to the ground. This personal and direct act of killing left a deeper psychological scar on Severloh than the sight of countless soldiers falling to his machine gun fire. This individual encounter recurred in his nightmares for years, highlighting the intense and personal trauma of war. Around 2 p.m., Hein observed several Sherman tanks advancing from the west, moving toward his stretch of the beach, near Exit 1 at Saint Laurent. By late morning, the main defenses of WN 65, which protected the Saint Laurent exit, had been neutralized, allowing columns of American soldiers to climb several parts of the cliffs unimpeded. Having exhausted his supply of 12,000 machine gun rounds, Hein was forced to switch to tracer bullets, which were less lethal but had the significant disadvantage of revealing his position. This was particularly dangerous, as American warships, now taking advantage of the rising tide, sailed closer to the shore, ready to attack any visible German position. Despite the increased risk, Hein continued firing, aware that his exposed position made him vulnerable to the advancing tanks and approaching naval firepower. As the day progressed, the relentless advance of the Allied forces made it increasingly difficult for Hein and his comrades to maintain their defense. The sight of American soldiers climbing the cliffs and the approach of the tanks underscored the desperate situation. Hein's switch to tracer rounds marked a turning point, as it not only reduced his effectiveness but also increased the danger he faced from both ground and naval attacks. The relentless pressure of the advancing Allied forces highlighted the turning tide of the battle, as the once formidable German defenses began to crumble under the sustained Allied offensive. Not long after, a grenade exploded in front of Hein's position, leaving him with a painful wound on his face. Around 3 p.m., Lieutenant Firking realized they had no choice but to abandon WN 62. Many soldiers of the 726th Regiment had already been wounded or had retreated up the slope, and Firking's observation post had just been directly hit. It was time for the remaining soldiers to make their escape through the communication trench, which offered some immediate protection. Firking ordered Hein to leave first, promising to follow him shortly. Hein remembered this moment as particularly moving because Firking, breaking military protocol, addressed him using the familiar form "du," indicating a personal bond. Hein quickly descended the trench, carrying a hot machine gun and an ammunition belt, his heart pounding due to the urgency of the situation. As Hein fled, the reality of the desperate situation struck them. The communication trench, while offering some cover, was no guarantee of safety. The retreat was chaotic, with explosions and gunfire everywhere. Every step Hein took was filled with danger, as the Allied forces were closing in and the German defenses were collapsing. His mind raced with thoughts of survival, the bond with his comrades, and the intense fear of being captured or killed. Lieutenant Firking, true to his word, followed Hein through the trench. The bond they shared, forged in the crucible of battle, provided a glimmer of hope amid the chaos. Their retreat marked the end of WN 62's resistance, a stronghold that had once been a formidable barrier, but was now being overrun. Hein's escape, burdened with the weight of his weapon and the recent memories of the day's horrors, symbolized the desperate human struggle for survival against overwhelming odds. Ghosts of Omaha, Heinrich Severloh. When Severloh and his comrades were captured, he did not know at the time, but the American soldiers who took them prisoner belonged to the 16th Infantry Regiment, the main regiment against which his machine gun had fired all morning. He was very lucky not to have revealed much information about himself. Though wounded, Heinrich spent the following days helping others less fortunate in a temporary prisoner of war camp in Vierville, at the opposite end of Omaha Beach. He was then sent to England, and from there to the United States, where he worked in several camps along the East Coast, from Boston to Florida, mainly helping with the harvest. During his time as a prisoner of war in the United States, he recalled another experience that awakened his awareness of the events of D-Day. One day, a comrade was flipping through an old issue of Star magazine which contained a graphic description of the Normandy landings. At first, he didn't think much of it, as he didn't understand English, but he noticed an article about the events on Omaha Beach in the American sector of Easy Red. His friend read the article to him, explaining that the men assigned to unload the weapons couldn't do so on the beach in front of Easy Red because the tide-carried blood mud was so high that the soldiers couldn't get through it, constantly slipping. After almost 2 years on the American continent, Heinrich received the news that he would be released from captivity earlier, as his father, after locating him, had requested his repatriation to help him on the farm. He was released on April 28, 1947. Heinrich did his best to adapt to life on the farm, but there was no way to keep his war experiences bottled up forever. Many of these experiences required some sort of closure, as difficult as it was. With this in mind, the first thing he did upon returning to Germany was to find the mother and widow of his old friend Firking, helping them locate Bernhard's grave, which was in a military cemetery a few kilometers from Omaha. In addition, he rekindled his relationship with Lisa, a girl who had been his girlfriend before he went to France, and married her in 1949. For some time, she was the only person with whom he could talk about the war, as he felt very depressed, regretful, and introspective. This led him to make several trips to Normandy, perhaps in search of answers for everything he was feeling. In the following decades, the ex-soldier managed to meet veterans from both sides and, in 2000, finally published his war experiences in his book. Although he never intended to publish his memoirs, he detailed them as a kind of cathartic release after 55 years of trauma that the war had caused in his later life. Heinrich Severloh left this world in 2006, but his legacy and the place where he earned the nickname the Beast of Omaha can still be seen today. The remains of the famous Resistance Nest 62 are located east of the Normandy American Cemetery and Memorial. Returning to the last century, he also ended up reconnecting with the Lyron family for the first time since D-Day, and learned that Firking had called them at 7 a.m. from his bunker, warning them about the invasion and advising them to seek safety in Bayeux, 10 kilometers away. He believed that both the Germans and the Allies would respect Bayeux as a historical monument, making it less likely to be targeted. This gesture illustrates the relationship they had developed with the villagers they had occupied. Although the Lyron family was well respected locally, their cordiality towards the Germans was risky, as they knew that the French would deal harshly with collaborators. Mr. Lyron then made an extraordinary offer to Hein. He asked Hein, an experienced farmer, to take over his farm in Haut-les-Bages, since his only son had tragically passed away and he and his wife were elderly. Despite seriously considering the offer, Hein felt he had to decline due to logistical challenges, but remained in contact with the Lyrons for the rest of their lives. Hein continued to make new connections through his association with Paul Carrel. One of the most significant occurred when Paul gave him the first edition of The Longest Day by Cornelius Ryan, which became a classic account of D-Day. In the book, Hein read about David Silva, who had suffered intense fire on Easy Red Beach in Colville in the early afternoon. Silva had been hit 3 times by a machine gun firing tracers, identifying Hein as the shooter. Determined to make amends, Hein learned that David Silva had become a priest and moved to Akron, Ohio. Although Hein's initial letters were returned due to Silva's frequent moves, he eventually tracked him down in Karlsruhe, Germany. This led to an emotional and cathartic reunion between the two veterans, fostering a lasting friendship and mutual respect. As the years passed, Hein made numerous connections with other D-Day veterans. In 1984, he received a call from Franz Gluckel, then an 18-year-old soldier of the 726th Grenadier Regiment, who had been positioned just below him. Gluckel organized a meeting with men from WN60, WN61, WN62, and WN63, inviting Hein to join them. This meeting provided Hein with crucial insights into the events of June 6, 1944, helping him fill in missing details and cope with the trauma he had experienced. During a visit, Hein met Jack Borman, whose Sherman duplex drive tank he remembered seeing stuck in the pebbles below his position on the beach. Jack's tank had destroyed one of the 75mm artillery pieces at WN-62, previously mentioned in the video. Jack's expression of remorse for the casualties he caused served as a poignant reminder for Hein that war impacts soldiers on both sides. Similarly, since the early 1960s, when Paul Carell's book, Invasion, They're Coming, was first published, Hein attracted the attention of several authors and journalists. One of the most unusual encounters occurred in 1984, when an English reenactment group invited him to the United Kingdom. The group, called the Association for the Rehabilitation of the Honor of German Wehrmacht Soldiers, wore meticulously decorated uniforms and followed military procedures familiar to Hein. They even presented him with a medal similar to a Purple Heart for the wounds he suffered on D-Day. Hein politely accepted the medal, but left feeling perplexed, questioning why anyone would reenact events that had caused so much suffering. Hein also dealt with authors who, in his opinion, sensationalized his story and neglected the anti-war message he wanted to convey. He received numerous offers to appear in documentaries and give interviews to French and German magazines. Despite his efforts to control the narrative, Hein found that journalists often put words in his mouth and asked leading questions, which increased his frustration and sense of misrepresentation. During an interview with the American network ABC after the 40th anniversary of D-Day in 1984, Hein was repeatedly questioned about how many men he had killed. When he refused to answer, the interviewer suggested a figure of 1,000. To end the interview, Hein reluctantly agreed, even hinting that it could be twice that number. This admission relieved his burden, but also increased his notoriety, attracting more attention from journalists, authors, and filmmakers. In 1999, the leading D-Day author, Helmut Conrad Baron von Keusken, contacted Hein and acknowledged the crucial role he played that day. Keusken offered Hein assistance in writing his personal account, resulting in a friendship that allowed Hein to finally unburden himself of the traumas he had endured 55 years after D-Day. This collaboration culminated in the book WN-62, which detailed the entire story of his experiences. In 2003, Hein was invited to appear in a film, which brought his experiences to the surface. During filming on the beach below WN-62, he was asked to walk towards another man. As they approached, Hein realized that it was David Silva, the man he had shot on D-Day, and whom he had tracked down after reading The Longest Day. This reunion, 39 years after the first, led to 4 emotionally charged days of filming and reliving past events. A visit to the American cemetery near WN-62 was particularly moving, and both decided it would be their last trip to Normandy. Hein's understanding of the devastation he caused on D-Day was based on his observations and reports from other soldiers who saw bodies in his field of fire. Some of the bodies may have been carried away by the shore. Media stories likely exaggerated his impact on the casualty list, and only recently has detailed work been done to assess the actual numbers. In his comprehensive 2004 account of Omaha Beach, Joe Balkowski estimates the total American casualties, killed, wounded, missing, on D-Day at about 4,700. To understand Hein's role in these casualties, it is crucial to consider the overall defenses in place. The beach was protected by 15 combat posts, bunkers, and large-caliber cannons located further inland. Hein himself mentioned that 85 machine guns were positioned along the beach, although not all were operational that day. Besides German weaponry, natural factors also contributed to the loss of life. The English Channel claimed many crew members of the Sherman duplex drive tanks that failed to launch successfully into the sea. Infantrymen who jumped from landing ships into deep waters before the ramps were lowered to avoid heavy fire also drowned. These factors, combined with the intense German defenses, created a lethal environment for the landing troops. Omaha Beach stretches for more than 6 kilometers. The 29th Infantry Division landed on the western half, with weather and currents pushing some of its 106th infantry boats toward Easy Red. The 29th suffered about 1,350 casualties. The 1st Division, which landed on the eastern half, from a point west of WN65 to below WN60, suffered only 70 fewer casualties. Additional units, mostly engineers, landed along the entire beach, completing the casualty list. After analyzing these numbers, it is evident that only a portion of the casualties were in Hein's field of vision. Those who were may have fallen victim to artillery shells, mortar bombs, and other machine gun and rifle fire directed at them. Further investigations into the exact numbers would largely be academic and would not significantly enhance the understanding of the sacrifices made on D-Day or the study of history. It is reasonable to suggest that, without Soldier Hein's actions, the U.S. Army might have been a battalion stronger when leaving the beachhead in Normandy. The notoriety that Hein gained later in life, earning the title the Beast of Omaha, was largely self-inflicted. He could have resumed his life in his local farming community, keeping his experiences and thoughts private. However, his curiosity and conscience led him to confront the distressing events of that day repeatedly, leading to a lifelong engagement with the most traumatic and horrific day of his life. From his writings and the numerous interviews available online, there is no indication that Hein sought to glorify his wartime actions. He did not portray himself as another victim of the war or seek sympathy. By exposing his feelings of guilt, he took significant risks, especially during his frequent visits to Normandy, where he could have encountered individuals still harboring thoughts of revenge. Hein would have preferred to forget his role in World War II, but found that he could not. Instead, he chose to share his story with the world, highlighting the profound consequences of one nation waging war against another. His revelations serve as a powerful reminder of the need to seek peaceful solutions to conflicts, challenging us to prevent history from repeating itself and to avoid more fratricidal wars by all necessary means. Now, let us listen to his interview transcribed in his own words. When I was confronted by what seemed to be a wall of Allied ships, I said, "My God, how am I going to get out of this mess?" I remember thinking, what could I do? I thought I would never make it to the rear. I thought I was going to shoot for my own life. It was them or me. That's what I thought. You should open fire when the enemy is knee-deep in water and still unable to run quickly. I saw how the water splashed where my machine gun shots landed, and when the little jets got closer to the GIs, they threw themselves to the ground. Soon the first bodies were floating in the waves of the rising tide. Before long, all the Americans down there were dead. I definitely killed at least 1,000 men, most likely more than 2,000, but I don't know how many men I shot. It's horrible to think about. It makes me want to vomit. I nearly emptied an entire infantry landing craft. The sea was red around it, and I could hear an American officer screaming hysterically into a loudspeaker. I fired with that machine gun. I did it as part of my training, and it has an extremely high rate of fire. I was in an almost impenetrable position for the weapons the Americans could bring against me. The Americans made the mistake of not landing tanks with the first wave of troops, so they had no support or protection. Help us keep this project alive here on YouTube by subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching, God bless you all, and see you soon.